The Horizon was not an ordinary ship. It was built during a time when Earth had only started to explore beyond its closest stars. The ship was created with care, every bolt and plate checked and rechecked. It was more than a vessel. It was a promise. The promise was simple. Wherever humans went, they would carry their courage and hope. Families on Earth saw the Horizon as a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it worked together. Captain Daniel Brooks had stood at the front of the crew when the Horizon was launched. He was not a loud man, but people listened when he spoke. His voice carried steady confidence, the kind that settled nerves even in uncertain times. The crew trusted him. Young men and women had left their families to follow him into the unknown, and none of them doubted the decision. They believed in their captain, and in return he believed in them. The first months were filled with excitement. The Horizon traveled through known sectors, mapping stars and planets with care. People at home followed their progress, listening to reports sent back. Some children even dreamed of one day joining ships like the Horizon, inspired by the bravery of those on board. The crew itself was a mixture of personalities. Dr. Laura Bennett was the science officer, sharp and curious. She often stayed awake long hours, studying new signals or anomalies. Commander Ethan Carter, second in command, had a practical mind. Where Bennett dreamed, Carter measured risks. He kept order, ensuring the ship's mission stayed clear. And there was Megan Lewis, one of the youngest pilots. She had steady hands on the controls, her focus sharp even when the ship slipped through dangerous regions. Together, they formed a family in space. They celebrated birthdays in the mess hall with small cakes from the food printers. They shared stories of Earth, of cities glowing under night skies, of oceans stretching farther than the eye could see. They laughed, argued, and comforted each other when loneliness grew too heavy. It was not easy being far from home, but they had one another. Then came the day everything changed. The Horizon was exploring a region beyond the last mapped system. The crew had just finished cataloging a barren world when the sensors caught something strange. At first it looked like interference, a wave of static brushing against their instruments. But Dr. Bennett leaned closer to the data, her brow furrowing. This was no random noise. It was structured, a signal of some kind. The patterns repeated, carrying rhythm like a heartbeat. Captain Brooks ordered the ship closer. The crew obeyed, their excitement mixing with unease. As they approached, the readings grew stronger. A distortion shimmered in space ahead of them. Not a planet, not a star, but something else entirely. It looked like a wound in the sky, a patch where stars bent and light warped. Megan Lewis adjusted the ship's course, her hands firm but tense. None of them had ever seen anything like it. "We should log this and return," Carter suggested, his voice tight. His instincts warned him this was not safe. But Bennett argued differently. "This is discovery. If we turn away now, we may never know what this is." She looked at the captain, her eyes alive with curiosity. Captain Brooks stood silent for a long moment. Then he gave his order. "Bring us closer." The Horizon advanced. The distortion pulsed like a living thing, its edges flickering with colors that had no name. Alarms began to sound. The ship's systems strained against unseen forces, panels flickering as though space itself was tearing at them. Megan fought the controls, her jaw clenched. "It's pulling us in," she shouted. The engines roared, but it was no use. The Horizon shuddered as if gripped by giant invisible hands. The crew scrambled, voices rising in panic. Carter barked orders, trying to hold the line. Bennett's hands flew across her console, recording every detail even as the distortion swallowed them whole. The captain stood firm, his hand on the rail. Eyes steady, though fear crept into every corner of the room. Then the stars outside vanished. For the crew, there was no sense of motion, no sound except the hum of the ship's heart. The windows showed only darkness, a silence deeper than space itself. Systems went quiet one by one, as if the Horizon had fallen asleep. Time lost meaning. Seconds stretched into hours, hours into something endless. The crew waited, hearts pounding, every breath heavy. At last, light returned. Not the light of their galaxy. Not the familiar constellations they had mapped. This was different. Strange suns glowed in patterns no human eye had ever seen. Massive shapes drifted in the distance, their outlines too vast to comprehend. The crew stared in awe and dread. Wherever they were, it was not the space they had left behind. "Where are we?" Megan whispered, her voice small. No one had an answer. The Horizon drifted in silence, caught in a place that felt older than time. They had crossed into something hidden, something no map had ever marked. Fear grew heavy in their chests, but so did wonder. They had vanished from human space, and no one knew if they would ever return. Back on Earth, weeks passed, then months. The Horizon stopped sending reports. At first, Command believed it was a delay. Communications could be slow across vast distances. Families waited for messages that never came. Parents, siblings, children sat by transmitters hoping for voices that would not arrive. As months turned to years, hope thinned. Official notices went out. The Horizon was declared lost. Memorials were held. Names were spoken with sorrow. Candles lit under night skies. Yet even in grief, questions lingered. What had happened to the Horizon? Some whispered that hostile aliens had destroyed it. Others believed it had fallen into a black hole, swallowed by nature's hunger. But there were those who clung to stranger stories, that the ship had crossed into another dimension, or that it had been taken by forces too great to name. In every case, one truth remained. The Horizon was gone and humanity could not follow. Captain Brooks and his crew had become legends, their disappearance a mystery told across generations. Some spoke of them as explorers lost in the void. Others said they had gone where humans were not meant to tread. But all agreed on one thing. The Horizon had vanished, and Earth would never forget the loss. Inside that silence, within that hidden place where no human light reached, the Horizon waited. Its crew did not know if they would ever see their families again. They did not know if Earth believed them dead, but they held on to hope, fragile and small because hope was the one thing that made them human. And in that strange space beyond the stars, their story was only beginning. The reappearance of the Horizon was like a dream. No one had believed the ship would ever be seen again. Decades had passed since it had vanished, and most of the crew's families had grown old or passed away. Earth had moved on, but the memory of the Horizon had never truly faded. It was a mystery told to children, a tale of courage and loss. And now, against all reason, the ship had returned. At first, the sensors on the edge of human space picked up a strange reading. A faint signal, weak but repeating, carried an old code that few still recognized. A young officer at the listening post leaned closer, his eyes wide as he traced the pattern. It was an identification signal used by Earth ships many years ago. He reported it at once, and soon the command stations were buzzing. The signal was real. The Horizon was alive. The ship appeared near a remote outpost, drifting calmly as if it had only just left port. Its hull gleamed without a single mark of age. Its engines purred with a strength that seemed untouched by time. For those who saw it on the viewing screens, it was like watching a ghost. Crews in nearby stations whispered in disbelief. Some refused to believe their eyes. Yet when the Horizon sent a direct hail, speaking in Captain Brooks' voice, there was no more doubt. The ship and crew had returned. When the Horizon was guided into docking, thousands gathered to watch. The hangar was filled with silence as the airlock doors opened. Captain Daniel Brooks stepped out first, his face exactly as it had been the day he vanished. His hair had not turned gray, his eyes not dimmed with age. Behind him came the rest of the crew, Commander Ethan Carter, Dr. Laura Bennett, and pilot Megan Lewis among them, all unchanged. They looked as if they had only been gone for weeks, not decades. The station officers did not know what to say. Many bowed their heads, unsure if they were in the presence of miracles or something else entirely. Captain Brooks raised his hand, calm and steady. "We have returned," he said. His voice carried strength but also weight. He knew the shock in their eyes, the questions waiting on their tongues. Families rushed forward, though for some it was too late. Megan's parents were gone, long buried. Carter's brother, once young, was now old and bent with years. Laura Bennett's sister, who had been a teenager when she vanished, was now gray-haired, her hands trembling as she embraced her. Tears filled the air, joy mixed with sorrow, for time had stolen what space could not. Word spread quickly. Across Earth and the colonies, people spoke only of the Horizon. News reports repeated the impossible story. A ship lost to history had returned unchanged. Governments demanded answers. Scientists begged to study the vessel. Military commanders asked where the crew had been and what they had seen. The Horizon was no longer just a ship. It was a key to something far greater. Inside the vessel, strange things were discovered. The ship's systems, once standard, now carried technology that no engineer could explain. Energy pulsed through conduits in ways that broke known science. The engines emitted no waste, no fuel trail. The weapons, when inspected, were silent and cold, but their design was terrifying in its simplicity. It was as if someone had rebuilt the horizon, using knowledge far beyond human reach. Dr. Bennett stood before a panel of Earth scientists, her expression calm as she explained. "We were taken," she said softly. The room leaned closer. "When the horizon vanished, we were pulled into another place. It was not our space. It was not even our universe. We were brought before beings who were ancient, older than anything we can measure. They watched us. They studied us. And in the end, they chose not to destroy us but to share what they knew." Her words chilled the listeners. Ancient beings? Knowledge beyond science? Many shook their heads in disbelief. But when the horizon powered its engines, when it demonstrated a jump across systems in the blink of an eye, there was no more room for doubt. Humanity had gained a gift, or perhaps a curse. Captain Brooks gave only a little more. We were told we could not return until the time was right. Now it is. We have come back because humanity is in danger. The galaxy is stirring and enemies gather. We were sent home not only with knowledge, but with purpose. Questions grew sharper. Who were these ancient beings? Why had they chosen humans? What was this danger? The captain refused to say more, but the weight of his words hung over everyone. Soldiers shifted uneasily. Scientists scribbled notes and leaders whispered in closed rooms. The horizon was both a wonder and a warning. For the crew, returning home was bittersweet. Megan walked through streets she barely remembered, watching children laugh in parks she had once visited as a girl. To her, only a few months had passed since she last saw Earth, yet everything had changed. Buildings were taller, technology more advanced, languages shifted. She felt like a stranger in her own home. Carter found his brother, but their bond was difficult. The years had driven them apart, one living through time while the other had skipped it. Dr. Bennett reunited with her sister, but the joy was tinged with sadness, for life had carried her family through joys and pains she had never shared. The people celebrated their heroes, but the crew could not escape the truth. They no longer belonged fully to this time. They carried memories of a place beyond human understanding. They carried secrets of ancient powers, and they carried the burden of what they knew was coming. Behind closed doors, the horizon was studied day and night. Engineers tried to copy its systems, but most of the ship's designs resisted analysis. Some scientists grew frustrated, while others whispered that humanity was not yet ready for such power. Still, even the fragments they managed to understand promised to change everything. New energy sources, faster travel, stronger defenses. But the return of the horizon did not go unnoticed by others. Beyond human space, rival species had long watched humanity's rise. They had mocked the young race, seeing humans as reckless children. Now their spies carried word of the horizon's reappearance, and fear began to spread. How had humans gained such a ship? What power had given them these tools? Whispers of war began to stir. In quiet moments, Captain Brooks stood alone in the observation deck of the horizon. He looked out at the stars with a heavy gaze. He remembered the words of the beings who had given them the gift. "You will return when the galaxy shifts. Protect your kind, for storms are coming." He had not shared all of it, not yet. He knew the truth would shake the foundations of every government, every fleet. For now, it was enough that humanity knew the horizon had returned. The rest would come soon. The ship rested in its dock, gleaming under the lights, silent yet alive. Crowds came to see it, to look upon the miracle with their own eyes. Some prayed before it, some saluted, and some simply stared in awe. The horizon had returned, but it was no longer the same ship that had left. It carried within it something more: hope, fear, and a promise of battles yet to come. And so the legend grew. The horizon, once thought lost, now stood as the center of every story told across Earth. Parents told their children of the brave crew who had vanished and returned unchanged. Songs were written, pictures painted, tales spread like fire. But beneath the celebration, unease lingered. What had truly happened beyond the stars? What had the crew seen in that hidden place? And why had they been allowed to come back now? No one could answer. Only Captain Brooks and his crew knew the full truth. And they carried it quietly, waiting, watching, preparing for the moment when that truth would matter most. Inside the horizon, the secrets of its journey were slowly revealed. The crew spoke in calm voices, though each memory carried a weight no words could fully explain. They had vanished from human space decades ago, But for them it felt as if only months had passed. What happened in that lost time was the story no one else could understand. Dr. Laura Bennett stood in front of a group of Earth scientists, explaining what had happened after the horizon was pulled into the strange distortion. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed the awe she still felt. "We were taken to a place outside of our universe," she said. "It was not space as we know it. The stars were different. The laws of physics bent in ways we could not measure. And there we met them." The scientists leaned closer. Some wrote notes quickly, others stared with disbelief. "Who did you meet?" one of them asked. "Beings older than time itself," Bennett replied. "They were not like us. They had no bodies as we understand them. They were vast, their presence like storms across the sky. They spoke not with words, but with thought. And they told us they had watched humanity for longer than we could imagine." The room went silent. Even the air felt heavy. Some shook their heads, but none interrupted. Bennett continued. "They wanted to see what we were. To them, most species are patterns they already understand. But humans were different. We are fragile, yet we refuse to break. We are limited, yet we never stop reaching." That curiosity, that will to endure, was what caught their attention. Commander Ethan Carter stood nearby, his arms crossed. He did not share Bennett's wonder. He had always been cautious, and even now he remained so. "They studied us," he said firmly. "They could have ended us at any moment, but they chose not to. Instead, they placed us in trials." The scientist frowned. "Trials?" "Yes," Carter said. "They tested us. They placed us in simulations of impossible challenges. We faced storms that tore apart planets, machines built to crush us, puzzles that bent our minds. We were pushed to the edge of breaking, and every time we found a way to survive." The crew remembered those days vividly. Megan Lewis had sat for hours at the controls, guiding the horizon through endless storms of fire and ice. She had thought her arms would give out, her mind shatter, but still she had held on. She remembered Brooks standing beside her, never shouting, only steady, reminding her she was not alone. Laura Bennett remembered facing riddles of science and time. Her brain stretched beyond exhaustion as she sought patterns where none seemed to exist. And Carter remembered battles, endless waves of enemies that came at them with fury, testing not only his strength but his discipline. "They were watching," Bennett whispered, "always watching, and when we did not give up, when we kept standing, they judged us worthy." The scientists struggled to absorb the words. "Worthy of what?" one of them finally asked. Captain Brooks, who had been silent until now, spoke at last. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that filled the room. "They gave us knowledge. Not all of it, but enough to change everything. They showed us how to bend space, how to draw energy from the fabric of the universe itself. They gave us tools no other species has ever possessed. But it was not a gift freely given. It was a trust. And it came with a condition." The listeners leaned forward. "What condition?" Brooks's eyes darkened. "We were told we could not return until humanity needed us most. Until the galaxy turned against us. Only then would it be right for us to come home. Until then we were to wait." The room filled with whispers. The scientists were torn between amazement and fear. Knowledge like this could change everything, power humanity had never dreamed of. Yet the thought of ancient beings watching them, waiting for the galaxy to turn hostile, sent a chill through every heart. Away from the meetings, the crew of the Horizon sat together, sharing memories no one else could understand. Megan leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. "Sometimes I wonder if it was all real," she admitted. "If maybe we dreamed it." Bennett shook her head. "It was real. Every test, every trial. I still see the lights of that place when I close my eyes." "We were remade there," Carter grunted. "We survived, that's all. And now we carry weapons we don't fully understand. That worries me more than anything." Brooks looked at them all. His voice was quiet but steady. "We carry responsibility. That is heavier than any weapon." The horizon itself bore proof of their story. Its engines could move faster than light without tunnels or jumps. Its shields bent attacks away as if they had never existed. Its weapons, when powered, hummed with a low energy that seemed alive. Earth's best engineers tried to copy them but failed. The systems did not respond to human tools as they should. It was as if the ship itself had chosen only its crew to command it. But the truth weighed on the crew. They knew what was coming. The ancient beings had not spoken of peace, only of storms. They had shown the horizon what awaited, Alien armadas rising, jealous of humanity's growing reach. Entire coalitions preparing to strike, eager to crush a young race before it grew too strong. Brooks remembered their words. Your kind will be tested. You will stand or you will fall. This knowledge was not yet shared with Earth's leaders. Brooks feared that revealing it too soon would cause panic. Instead, he guided the crew in silence, preparing them for what would come. Each day they trained, learning to use the new systems with precision. Megan flew through simulations of battles that Earth had never fought. Carter drilled the security teams, shaping them into soldiers sharper than any before. Bennett studied the ship's systems, pushing her mind to grasp at least part of the vast science they had been given. At night, the crew sometimes dreamed of the beings. Their voices whispered like thunder across their minds. Not cruel, not kind, only vast. Megan often woke with a start, her heart racing as if those eyes of light were still upon her. Bennett wrote everything down, filling journal after journal with sketches of the strange structures she remembered. Carter remained silent, his dreams unspoken, though his eyes grew harder each day. Brooks alone seemed calm, but even he carried a shadow in his gaze. On Earth, rumors spread. People whispered that the horizon carried alien weapons. Some feared the crew had been changed, no longer truly human. Others believed they were chosen saviors, destined to lead humanity into a golden age. Crowds gathered outside the docking stations, cheering when the crew appeared. Yet in the shadows, spies from rival nations and even alien species worked to learn the truth. Fear and envy moved quickly across the stars. The horizon remained quiet in its dock, but those who touched its hull felt a strange hum, like the heartbeat of something alive. Children who visited the station pressed their hands against it, whispering in awe. To them, the horizon was magic. To the leaders of Earth, it was both hope and danger. The crew knew the truth. They had been remade in the heart of something ancient. They had been given knowledge to protect their kind. But the price was clear: war was coming. And when it came, the horizon would be the first to stand. In quiet moments, Captain Brooks stood alone on the bridge. He touched the controls gently, like greeting an old friend. His thoughts drifted back to the words of the beings. When the storm comes, you will be the shield. If you fail, your kind will be broken. If you endure, your kind will rise. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of that trust. They had vanished once, and now they had returned. But their journey was not over. It was only beginning. The galaxy was not quiet. Across the stars, alien coalitions prepared their fleets. For years, they had watched humans expand from their small blue world into the wider universe. At first, they laughed at the young species. Humans were clumsy, fragile, and short-lived, but they were also restless, always reaching further, always building more. And now, with the return of the horizon, the laughter had stopped. Fear had taken its place. Whispers carried through alien courts. Reports of the horizon's sudden reappearance spread quickly. Spies brought word of its strange power, of a ship unchanged by time, of a crew who looked as young as the day they left. Rumors told of weapons that bent space, of engines that ignored distance. The coalitions feared what this meant. If humans had such power, they could no longer be treated as a small race. They would be a threat. On Earth, leaders gathered in hidden chambers. Screens glowed as generals, admirals, and presidents spoke with grim faces. Some called for the horizon to be dismantled, its secrets locked away before they spread. Others argued that it must become the heart of Earth's defense. Captain Brooks sat among them, his face calm but his words sharp. The storm is coming. You can deny it, but it will not stop. The coalitions gather even now. If you hide, you will be crushed. If you fight, you may endure. The horizon is ready, the leaders argued, but deep down they knew he was right. Reports from colonies confirmed strange movements near their borders. Alien fleets lingered where they had no reason to be. Trade routes were disrupted. Settlers reported ships vanishing into the dark. The pressure grew with each passing day. Earth had little choice but to prepare. On the horizon, the crew trained harder than ever. Megan Lewis sat at the controls, guiding the ship through drills that no human pilot had ever attempted. The engines allowed her to move in ways that broke old rules of flight. She slipped the horizon between simulated enemy formations, vanishing and reappearing in bursts of light. Each maneuver left other pilots gasping. "It's like dancing with the stars," she whispered once, her hands steady on the controls. Commander Ethan Carter drilled the defense teams. The new weapons did not fire like traditional guns or cannons. They hummed with energy that seemed alive, waiting to be released. Carter taught his teams to focus, to aim with patience. A single shot could tear apart an enemy ship, but wasted shots could drain the systems. Discipline, he reminded them again and again. This ship is not a toy. It is a blade. Treat it with respect. Dr. Laura Bennett studied the ship's systems, pushing herself to learn as much as she could. She slept little, her eyes always fixed on streams of strange data. The more she learned, the more she realized how little she truly understood. This is not science, she muttered to herself late one night. It's something beyond it. Something closer to language. She began to believe the ship itself was speaking, not with words, but with patterns. She tried to listen. Captain Brooks carried the weight of them all. He spent long hours in silence, his hands folded behind his back as he stared at the stars. He thought often of the beings who had given them this knowledge. He remembered their voices like thunder. When the storm comes, you will stand. The storm was almost here. He felt it in his bones. The first attacks came without warning. A human colony on the edge of space was struck by a coalition fleet. Dozens of alien ships descended, firing on settlements, burning defenses to ash. Families fled into shelters as their skies lit with fire. Earth's regular fleets scrambled to respond, but they were days away. By the time they arrived, the colony would have been gone. The horizon moved. Megan guided the ship out of dock with calm precision. The crew manned their stations, each heartbeat steady despite the fear that gripped them. Carter's voice was sharp as he gave orders to the defense teams. Bennett worked the sensors, scanning the enemy fleet ahead. Brooks stood at the center of it all, his face calm. "We will not let them fall," he said. His words carried through the ship, steadying every heart. The horizon dropped into the battle like a falling star. One moment the colony was burning, the next the horizon appeared between it and the enemy fleet. Alien captains shouted in disbelief, their sensors screaming warnings. They had expected only weak human defenses. Instead, they faced the ship of legends. The aliens opened fire. Beams of energy and torrents of plasma streaked through space, but the horizon's shields bent them away, curving space itself to swallow the attacks. The crew felt the shudder of impact, but nothing pierced the hull. "Shields holding," Bennett reported, her voice trembling with awe. "Return fire," Brooks ordered. Carter gave the command, and the horizon answered. Its weapons lit with a low hum before releasing blasts that tore through enemy ships as if they were paper. One, then two, then three ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Panic rippled through the coalition fleet. They had never seen such power. Megan danced the horizon through the chaos, vanishing and reappearing in bursts of light, outmaneuvering every attempt to trap them. The battle lasted less than an hour. Where dozens of enemy ships had once stood, only wreckage remained. The survivors fled, scattering into the dark. The colony below cheered as the horizon stood guard above them, its hull glowing like a star of hope. Word of the battle spread like fire. Across human space, people celebrated. Songs were written of the horizon's return, of how it had stood against impossible odds and won. Parents told their children that humanity had a guardian now, a ship that could not be defeated. But in alien courts, fear turned to rage. The coalitions realized they could not allow the horizon to live. They began to gather larger fleets, preparing for war. Brooks knew this was only the beginning. The beings had warned him. Once the horizon revealed its power, the galaxy would turn. Humanity had shown its strength, and now the storm would fall on them with full force. But Brooks did not waver. "We will face them," he told his crew, "and we will endure." At night, when the crew rested, he stood alone on the bridge. He watched the stars in silence, feeling the weight of what was coming. He thought of Earth, of the families who now looked to them as saviors. He thought of the beings who had trusted them with this power. And he thought of the future, a path filled with fire and blood. Yet he stood steady, because he knew humanity had one chance, and it was the horizon. The storm had begun, and the horizon was ready to meet it. The galaxy had begun to notice humanity in a way it never had before. The horizon's actions were not forgotten, and neither was the power it carried. Reports of the ship's impossible weapons, its unmatched speed, and its ability to protect colonies spread across star systems. Humanity was no longer a small, weak species. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the horizon was the symbol of that truth. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge, looking at the stars ahead. He knew that the real challenge had only just begun. Alien coalitions were gathering, assembling fleets far larger than any Earth force could handle without the horizon. Their hatred for humans had grown into something dangerous. The crew had prepared as best they could, yet Brooks knew this battle would test every skill, every bit of knowledge they had gained from the beings who had watched them. "Status report," he said, his voice calm but firm. Megan Lewis's hands moved over the controls with grace. "Enemy fleet detected." 3 separate waves approaching from multiple directions. Distance 4 light minutes. Dr. Laura Bennett analyzed the readings. "Their formation is complex, but I think we can predict their first move. They will try to divide us and attack the colonies while we are distracted." Carter nodded. "We'll need to be faster than they expect. We can't let them isolate the colonies." The horizon leapt forward, its engines bending space to move faster than light. In a matter of minutes, they reached the first wave of enemy ships. Megan maneuvered the horizon through the formation with precision that seemed impossible. Enemy beams of energy struck the shields, but the ship twisted space around them, nullifying the attacks. Brooks gave the order. "Fire at will." The horizon responded with a controlled hum of power. Energy beams streaked through space, tearing through enemy hulls like paper. Ships exploded in bright flashes, scattering debris across the void. Megan's hands flew across the controls as she led the ship through the chaos, disappearing and reappearing with each maneuver. The enemy had expected a human fleet that could be destroyed easily. They had not counted on the horizon. Carter coordinated the defense teams with precision. "Focus fire on the lead ships. Take out the command vessels first." Each shot struck true, the new technology making the targeting exact. The alien fleet struggled to regroup, panic spreading among them. Ships collided, some destroyed by their own mistakes, unable to keep up with the speed and cunning of the horizon. As the first wave fell, the second began to advance. They came from different angles, hoping to trap the horizon. Brooks didn't panic. He turned to his crew. "Remember what we learned. Trust the ship, trust each other." Megan's eyes narrowed. She guided the horizon through the second wave, her mind and ship moving as one. The energy weapons struck with deadly accuracy. Shields bent space to protect the horizon while the weapons tore through enemy lines. The alien forces had never faced an enemy like this. Their fleets were powerful, but no match for humans armed with impossible knowledge. Bennett worked with the sensors, calculating trajectories and energy outputs. She discovered a way to amplify the ship's power for a short burst. "Captain," she said, "if we combine the energy fields and release them at the center of the enemy formation, it could wipe out half of them instantly." Brooks considered it. "Do it." The horizon thrummed with energy. The crew held their breath as the release began. A wave of power shot forward, bending space and light around the enemy fleet. Ships shattered, explosions lighting the darkness. The alien commanders struggled to understand what had just happened. Their forces were broken, morale collapsing. Retreat became their only option. Even as the horizon pursued the fleeing ships, the crew knew this would not end the war. More fleets were gathering, larger and more determined. But the horizon had proven its power. Humanity had sent a clear message. They were not to be underestimated. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. People cheered in the streets, across colonies, across space stations. The horizon and its crew were hailed as heroes. Parents told their children the story of the ship that returned from nothing and defended them against impossible odds. Songs, poems, and stories spread quickly, turning the horizon into a symbol of hope and strength. But for the crew, the victory was quiet, controlled. They knew more battles were coming. Brooks gathered them in the command room. "We have shown them what humanity can do. But we cannot stop here. We must prepare for what comes next." Carter nodded. "They will not give up. They will come back with more ships, more weapons," Bennett added. "And we will be ready. We have the knowledge now and we know how to use it." Megan smiled faintly. "And the horizon will lead the way." Brooks looked out at the stars. "We will protect our kind. Every colony, every person. We carry the trust of those who gave us this knowledge. We cannot fail." As the horizon moved through space, it became clear that humans had changed. No longer were they small and weak. They had faced the impossible and survived. They had vanished once and returned stronger than before. Across the galaxy, stories spread of the ship that could not be destroyed and the crew that seemed immortal. Fear and respect followed them wherever they went. The horizon had become more than a ship. It was a promise of humanity's resilience. It was a shield and a weapon, a beacon and a warning. The crew had endured what no one else could, learned what no one else could, and returned to protect what they loved. In the quiet moments, Captain Brooks reflected on what had happened. They had been given impossible technology, yes, but they had also been given a choice to use it for destruction or protection. They had chosen to protect, and in doing so, had earned their place in the galaxy. The beings who had given them this knowledge had trusted humans, and humans had not failed. The stars stretched out before them, endless and filled with danger. More fleets would come, more enemies would challenge them, but the horizon was ready. The ship that vanished had returned carrying a legend, a power, and a promise. Humanity had faced the storm and emerged stronger. The story of the horizon and its crew would be told for generations, a reminder that even against impossible odds, humans endure and rise. And so, with the horizon leading the way, humanity stepped boldly into the future, armed with knowledge, courage, and a will that no force in the galaxy could break.